So here we are, episode 26. This wraps up our first year of episodes, and we thought it would be a great time to have a panel of guests to talk all things Billy and their Billy experiences. So we've got a great panel here with us today, and let's just kick it off by introducing everyone. We've got our good friend Mike Stutz, who is the creator, moderator of all things Billy on Facebook, the Billy Joel Completely Retold Facebook group. He is the man behind that and many more. So hello, Mike.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
And we've got Melissa and Teddy Boileau from the Songs from the Attic radio show. You can hear them Sundays from 10 to 11 Eastern on WVOA 87.7 in Syracuse, New York. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Our pleasure.
All right, and from the Philadelphia contingent, we have Matt DiMarino. Matt's a friend of mine. He's a Philadelphia-based musician and actor. He and I played together in the Angry Young Band Billy Joel Tribute. It's actually pretty much how we met. And then we have Billy Handy. Billy is gigged as a pianist and a drummer for the past 2 decades and has worked as a booking agent for Philadelphia area wedding and private event bands. And then this year he's focused on learning new music and zeroed in specifically on Billy Joel, who's been his biggest influence. And so he's been playing some small shows of all Billy material as things reopen this year.
Hey, yeah.
How's it going, guys?
Yeah, I'm right back for everybody.
It's a good.
All right. So let's kick things off. So the way we set this up is we just came up with a couple of general questions, and we sent them out to everybody ahead of time, and we figured we'd ask them one by one, get everyone's answers, and just see where it goes from there. So I guess we'll go in the order in which we introduced everyone. So starting, the first question is, so each of you has a media project involving Billy's music. We want to know what inspired you to launch it. And Mike, you want to kick it off?
Well, I've got so many different ones that I've started and half done over the years. But as the main one, I suppose is going to be just the Facebook group, Billy Joel Completely Retold. We started back in 2011. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. It was right after Facebook started letting people create your own groups and create your own pages other than your profile picture. And I wanted to do something to kind of bring fans together. I had a bunch of, bootleg CDs that I had collected over the years, and I wanted a way to share them with other fans and just discuss them and talk about them. And so I made a group. I work at a hospital, and during my lunch period, I'd go down to a grand piano they had down in the lobby, and I'd play Billy music on it and record myself, and I would post those videos. That was kind of the first thing I did starting out. And then I started posting videos of outtakes and stuff like that. And that's kind of where I came up with the idea to make a group based basically on the outtakes from all of Billy's albums. So that's how that started.
Melissa, how about you?
So like most things in my life, the most random conversations and questions end up becoming things that I never dreamed of. I'm a certified double master's degree teacher. I had no experience in radio at all, fell into it. That's a whole nother story. And in passing had said to someone, I would really love to have an all Billy Joel radio show. And the quote back to me was, well, why can't you? Wait a minute, what? So come to find out, the station I worked for also had this other dial position where you can buy airtime. You could do whatever kind of show you wanted. And thus Songs from the Attic was created.
That's fantastic. It's wild, sometimes when you think of things like that, in your mind, you don't think it's possible. And it just takes that one person to tell you it is, and things change quickly.
They do. Right time, right place. I was in the right company that had that signal. If it was anywhere else, it wouldn't have happened. So.
Wow, that's great. So Teddy, your story's similar, obviously.
Melissa. So when she wanted to start the Billy thing, she needed an engineer. I mean, she could have hired an engineer from the station, but I have, you know, I'm a musical background. I played drums since I was a kid, but I got into sound engineering also. So I have my own front end for bands and this, that, and the other. So I was familiar with, you know, audio signals. So that's how I got dragged into doing the radio show every Sunday instead of playing golf. And but I will admit, I've had a riot. We've had amazing things happen. So, but it was because of Melissa that I got into it.
Are you even a fan of Billy's music?
I am. Well, I will tell you this. I always liked Billy's stuff was good. I mean, I'm a big Rush fan. Neil Peart is my idol. But through when she was going to do this, I'm like, okay, I need to study the guys. And I guess that's a question to another, or an answer to another question coming up. But through Chuck Berge, and then listening to Billy's live music, I'm a huge live music person. Billy's live stuff, I just can't get. It's phenomenal. I just can't get.
That's where he really shines. Is the live versions.
Just it's amazing, and you know, I could go on for a while, but one of my dreams is to meet Brian Ruggles, sound engineer extraordinaire. So,
and longest tenured guy in the crew.
Yes, he is. He was with him
by
since
a
the beginning.
mile.
Yeah.
Isn't there on the one of the live recordings? It's like it's Brian Ruggles' birthday or something, like his 21st birthday, I think.
Yeah, it was like 19 or 21 or something. Like super young still. Yeah,
that's
amazing. Wild.
Has anybody seen like an interview or anything with Brian or read one?
He was just with Carl a couple weeks ago on his live show, which was great. Yeah, it was really great. And I think Carl said he's going to have him back too, sooner or later, from what I understand.
Oh, cool. I got to go find that now. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been looking.
Sorry, go on.
I've been trying to look through for old video stuff or anything from him. There's a bunch of audio engineers for big national acts that have, posted videos on their techniques, so on and so forth. I can't find any on Brian. And I'll be honest with you, Brian is probably one of the best audio engineers, period. Not just because he's with Billy. I mean, the Carrier Dome is known for being one of the worst audio places, period. And yet Billy sounds great in it. And it's all due to Brian. And here's the other thing. You look at the videos of Billy. What is he singing into? An SM58.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. You look at all these other high-end people, they're using, name anything.
Right.
Billy's using a 58. Every singer on that stage is a 58. And they sound ungodly. And that's due to Brian.
Yeah.
But
it's also a plug for Shure, I guess.
I would have to say. I mean, the 58 has a dual purpose. The 58 and the 57, they're microphones. And then if you need a hammer, you can use them for a hammer and then put them back on the mic stand.
Absolutely.
But no,
that was actually demonstrated. I went to a recording engineering school during our studio maintenance class. That was actually demonstrated during the class.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Holy crap.
And it worked.
Wow.
And then plugged it back in. Good to go.
There you go, baby.
Yeah, there's a side note, not to get on a whole tangent about, those the 57s or 58s or whatever, but I had heard when I was in school, one of our instructors said the way that like Metallica gets that thick, chunky guitar sound is they would just duct tape like literally 10 or 20 of those 57s together and stick them in front of the amp, and that's
really
that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some
did not know that.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's versatile.
Yeah. All right, Matt. So that brings us to you, actually. Well, you and I were together in Angry Young Band. So what's your recollection of that coming together?
Yeah. So as you know, Jack and I had a mutual friend who had asked me to come in and audition for a different project, and out of that meeting is the collateral project was Angry Young Band. So that's we met in in that one instance, and then we broke off. And I think if I remember correctly, I think we had some downtime at one point, and I was kind of noodling on the keyboard, and I started playing the Prelude, Angry Young Man riff. And then not because, you know, not only is it fun to play, but it's also a good time filler. And I think that's kind of what sparked the idea. I mean, but that's basically all my recollection of it.
I froze, so if you talk shit about me, somebody better tell me.
I'll leave it in. I'm editing this one.
Yeah, leave it in. Leave it in.
Well, yeah, I don't know what you said now.
I can say it again if you want.
Just give me a quick summary in case I wanted to respond or add to it.
What did you say? Do a quick what?
Just a quick summary.
Oh,
Just a quick summary.
Yeah, so Jack and I have a mutual friend who asked me to audition for a different project. And out of that meeting came a collateral project, which ended up being Angry Young Band. And what I remember from being in that audition was there was a little bit of downtime, and I think I started playing the Prelude Angry Young Man riff, which is not only fun to play, but it's just a great time filler. And I think that's kind of what sparked the idea, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I remember you did that, and then we like kind of played through the fast part of Scenes from an Italian Restaurant for a minute too.
Okay, all right, yeah.
And you know, it's funny. I found like the first time we played, which is at Sweeney's, when we still had Ray on piano, and Matt was actually playing guitar for the first couple of shows. And like the first time we played, man, there was this look on your face. You looked like so happy doing it. It was ridiculous. It was really. I gotta find it and share it with you.
Yeah, because I'd had the stipulation that I didn't want to you know, generally get into another live situation unless it was going to be like the right one, and like this was just serendipitous the way that we happened to meet, and we were both just these huge Billy Joel fans. We both grew up listening to him, and it was just like kismet, you know. And I that was accurate, that face, that smile. So yeah.
Cool. All right, Billy, you're up.
Sure. I'm not really sure if I have a media outlet, but I do have a lot of different channels that I like to channel Billy through. One of them just actually, you know, when 2020 came around last March, you know, trying to make the best out of a bad situation, I decided that I wanted to really fall in love with music again and learn as much music as I could. And Billy's always been my, you know, one of my favorites. And I just dedicated the last year of playing Billy music. I've played in wedding bands and private event bands for, you know, 10 plus years, and worked with an agency booking bands. Actually, there's another Retold member whose father was a band leader of a band that I used to book. The band coincidentally was called Strangers. If you guys know Dawn Bloomingdale, her father was one of the bands I used to manage, which was pretty cool. So that all kind of came together. But no, I think taking 2020 and all of my gigs that just went down the tubes and all the booking and everything, I've just been able to focus on playing and just learning and absorbing music, and trying to go out and play as much as I can, small gigs, things like that. But my focus right now has just been solely on Billy music, and I've just been loving every minute of it.
So I'm going to throw a curveball question in here now that I heard everyone's stories, and this is mostly for Billy, Matt, and Mike. Since you three are piano players, what do you think is your favorite Billy song to play, even if it's not your favorite to listen to?
Yeah, I guess I'll go. Yeah, like I said before, I really love playing the Prelude just because of how it's technically brilliant and challenging at the same time, but also it's just like, it's one of those things where like it explodes out of the piano. And you know, that's like, you know, where they you know, when they show a montage of Billy's music, that's like huge. Well, I would say like most of the time, like the opening thing, you know, those fast middle C's. But yeah, so that's what I would say.
You want to go? I'll go. I guess I'll go. Mine's The Entertainer. I love playing The Entertainer. It's a song that builds. specifically on the piano throughout the whole piece. Starts off pretty, just basic chords, and it goes into I think Billy calls it banjo fingers a little bit, throughout the tune. And that's a lot of fun to play, especially with the full band. I mean, that's a great song to play. Not necessarily my favorite Billy song, but probably my favorite song to play.
How about you, Mike?
I'd probably go with Mexican Connection. It's not one that I've heard a lot of anybody else play. I like how it starts simple and quiet and then really builds up. Seems like a challenging song, but it's not actually that hard to play. And, I play that a lot at the hospital, and I get a lot of comments on that. I also like playing after the key change at the end of Moving Out.
Yeah.
I love that part when you listen to it live with the horns. I get goosebumps every time, and just it's fun to play, especially going down the extra octave for the final run through.
Yeah, you could Mexican Connection. That was a good call, because I was just listening to Street Life Serenade today, and that's just such an underrated album. And
yes, it is.
There's like a few great like hidden gems on there that I'm pretty sure like the passing listener hasn't really come in contact with, but that's one of them for sure.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to hijack even a question, but I'm just curious, as other piano players, are you guys using apps, or are you guys using sheet music, or what are you guys using to use your charts? I mean, are you using directly music from the books, or what's?
Funny you should ask. I never took piano lessons. I was in 9th grade. I got straight A's, so my mom said she'd buy me a keyboard. And so I was kind of self-taught from there. A year later, and we'll talk about this in another question, but I ended up getting a Billy Joel songbook, and I just sat down and memorized. It's not a very efficient way of learning. Since I can't read the music, I have to learn and I never learned how to play piano. I have to learn the hands separate. I'll learn the right hand part, then I'll go back, learn the left hand part, and then slowly merge the two and just memorize what goes where. Over the years, I've learned, this is a C chord, this is a D chord, and I've started playing songs with just doing that way. But to start out, I just did memorizing the Hal Leonard sheet music.
Yeah.
And then,
you know what? Those books, I don't know if you're talking about the green. Are you talking about like the green definitive? Yeah, those books are great. The only thing that sometimes you'll find like a little section that's not like that apparently no one knows how to notate. Like for instance, if you look at the intro to like Piano Man, I've never seen that like notated ever. So like it's one of those things where you just have to like keep listening to it, the actual recording, and then slowly pick out, okay, I know that note's in there somewhere, add that note.
And then when I was in college, I came across the transcript books and learned, New York State of Mind, the parts, the solos in Scenes from Talia Restaurant, all that fun stuff. So
I'd like to throw something in. I'm a drummer, but I originally started my music when I was a kid. I did play piano. I took piano lessons for 4 years. But then I loved drums. Well, anyways, so when we got this house, I made a studio downstairs, and I ended up buying a Roland, I think it was a Phantom, because I wanted to start playing piano again. I wanted to start writing some music. So I went and got a Billy book. All right. And I got it out and started learning to play some of the Billy songs. Well, you all know who Wade Preston is, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Wade's a friend of ours. He was up here on a weekend, and I was so happy because I was going to be able to get to jam with him. So we're down in the basement, and I'm like, oh, wow, I just learned, the beginning to My Life, or I think it was there, or whatever it was.
No, and it was Scenes you tried to do.
Oh, was it Scenes? All right, so it was Scenes, beginning of Scenes.
Oh, yeah.
So I go over, I said, hey, Wade, I go, check this out. And I start playing the opening intro, and he just goes, what's that? And I go, what do you mean? So I started it over again. And I got 12 bars in, and I go, you don't know that? He goes, I don't know what that is. I go, it's scenes. He goes, that's not scenes. And he comes over, he goes, this is scenes. And he played crap like, but yours does sound correct. He goes, don't, that book doesn't, that's not the way to play it. I thought I was doing good. And no, Wade showed me the right way to play. I thought it was funny because I was so proud.
That's funny.
You know?
Right.
That's like Billy. He's going on Just the Way You Are. That's a suspension.
Yes.
I had back years ago, I was in a band and we recorded an album 12 or so years ago. And one of the guys who produced and engineered it is this guy, Donnie Brown, who played drums in the Verve Pipe. And he caught wind that we were covering one of their songs, the song Photograph. And I was at his house and he asked me about it. I was down in his studio and I'm like, yeah, we've been playing it for a couple months. And he hands me a pair of sticks. He goes, play the fill coming out of the third verse. I'm like, you're kidding me right now. So I'm like, great. Okay. It's going to be bad no matter what I do now. So I sit down, play it. He goes, nope, get up. Yeah. He sits down. So he gives me a tutorial on some of the fills of the tune. I'm like, well, this was also embarrassing and very cool at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
Mike, you want to take the next question?
Yeah. So now we're going into the Billy Joel origin stories. How did you become a Billy Joel fan? Let's start off with Mike.
All right. Well, I just kind of was always around it. I was in kindergarten in 1980, and my dad bought and brought home the Glass Houses album. So I heard that a lot, just kind of getting my feet wet, hearing it around the house. Third grade, 1983, hung out. I was a latchkey kid, and I'd spend a lot of time over at my grandma's house. She had cable over there where she had like Showtime and MTV, and that's where I got exposed to the Innocent Man videos. And so that kind of I was enough to where I went and bought the greatest hits just for Tell Her About It, Longest Time, and Uptown Girl. Then it went a while, didn't really become much more of a fan. And then in high school, met a girl who I really had a crush on. And one day I heard her walking through the hall singing And So It Goes, just kind of a cappella. And that's where I started collecting the albums and started teaching myself piano.
Nice.
And it just went from there. And then, in 1995, I was in a car accident where my friends who knew I liked Billy got in touch with him and his record company, and he ended up sending a get well package with like $400 worth of CDs, videos, stuff like that. And that was kind of what caused me to go on and create the group too, everything I do on Facebook. And I remember back in the day going to eBay auctions for rare stuff and writing down all the emails of the people that bid on it, and then sending them emails and saying, "Hi, my name's Mike. I have that CD. You want to trade?" And do that, started a collection like that. And then when I started my Facebook group, I went through all those emails I had written down and sent out invitations. Like Tony Walker, a lot of old school people that are in the group I met through that way.
Wow.
Yeah, you and I think connected early on in the tape trading.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, well, there was when I went off to college and the internet had just come out, there was a Chale Hall had an email list, and we get like 100 emails a day. People would send into this one email address, and it would go out to the hundreds of people that were registered to it. So that's how a lot of us met way back when.
Melissa, how about you?
I get this question a lot, and I honestly cannot tell you the answer. It's kind of just been there through my whole life. My parents were never really big music people, but music was always around. I wore the 8-track for so many Bee Gees albums out in my mom's car, but the car was the Bee Gees, and like different places were different music. I truthfully have no idea how it started, why it started, when it started. The only thing I can tell you is the greatest moments of my life have been surrounded by his music, his concerts, people I've met through him. the greatest moments of my life have all you can trace every single one of them back to him.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
How about you, Ted? You kind of dipped into that a little bit.
Yeah, I gotta say, I really didn't become a Billy fan until I married Melissa, kind of, but
No,
honestly,
you had to like him before you married me. I wouldn't say yes until
That was part of the deal, right?
well, I mean, I did.
You kind of got married. Huh?
Yeah, that's right.
I
think he was
liked his
lying to you.
music. I did like his music, but I became an uber fan, honestly, because of Chuck Berge.
Yeah.
So when
That's gotta be
we
pretty
were,
recent.
say again?
So that's kind of recent, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Liberty was always a great inspiration when I was in high school with some of the drum riffs that he came up with. I mean, I'll be honest, one of the most iconic is the beginning of
Only the Good Die Young.
Only the Good Die Young. It's just iconic. But I became an uber fan through Chuck Berge when I researched when we were going to meet Mike Del Judas and see them at the Turning Stone. I said, and we were going to start in the radio show. I'm like, all right, let me find out about the band. And obviously being a drummer at heart, I went to the drummer first, Chuck Berge, found out who he was with, Hall & Oates, Enrique Iglesias, Dio, Black, all them guys. But
his resume is crazy. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But then they had another band that he had started up with Andy Sachon, the bass player,
And
called Shotgun Wedding. And Wade.
And Dennis and
Delgadio.
Dennis, yeah.
Yep. And so through that research, found out they were all playing the last play at Shea, which is my Island CD. That DVD, that album, the way the band sounded, the way Billy sounded, is almost nothing gets me like that.
Yeah.
And that's the live stuff. That's when I just became an uber fan. Then I went to my first concert. It was it.
And it was over. Yeah.
It was it. Yep. It was over.
Oh, fantastic.
Hey, Ted, is your computer on your lap or something? It's jiggling all over the place when you talk.
It's on my hand.
Okay.
I'm on my phone. I apologize.
I didn't want to interrupt.
I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm on my phone.
Okay.
And my hand starts to shake sometimes.
Yeah. No worries.
I apologize.
It's really not too bad. It's fine.
Okay.
Don't sweat it.
You want to lead into Matt, Michael?
Yeah. So Matt, same with you. How did you get into Billy? What brought you into becoming a fan?
Yeah, I think I fall into a little bit of what Mike was saying about the greatest hits, having I think I definitely had 1 and 2 at some point. But that's generally a good lead in to, his back catalog. But I do remember earlier memories included, B101 is one of the local, or at least it was. I don't know if it still is anymore. But it was like the station that was like the adult contemporary station that always played at least one of, a few of Billy's songs. And then of course you have the classic rock stations. But where we were in time at that point, in 5th grade, River of Dreams for me was big. And I had seen, students would have the CDs of it, and they would be talking about it, or somehow I don't know, I guess they didn't have Discmans back then, so I don't really know like if they were playing it, if they were just like, look, I'm cool because I listen to Billy. I don't know, but I do remember that. And so from hearing the radio a little bit on the radio and having the greatest hits, one Christmas I said, I'm just going all out. I said, I just want all of his back catalog. So I asked for like pretty much all of the CDs that I didn't have, which is interesting because I didn't get all of them, but I got like Songs in the Attic, and I got the Russian album, and I I didn't realize that those, when I asked for those, I didn't realize that they weren't like studio albums. So the first versions I heard of like Miami 2017 was the, you know, the big synthesizer sweep at the beginning. And I was just like, man, it sounds so cool. No need to bleep me out on that. But I'll
We're gonna throw it on the bleep anyway.
You insert any word you want. And then so when I did actually go back and like, you know, buy Turnstiles, like the studio, it was not really a letdown, but it was just like, oh, but the live versions is like just right in your face, and it's so cool.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting thing. But then, you know, I do remember eventually I got Street Life Serenade, and like, I don't know why that album in particular just has such a vibe to it with the pedal steel, and it just makes you like, it gives you that like feeling of just like a laid back, like lazy Sunday for some reason. And I remember one time I had to do chores because I was in high school. My parents told me to like vacuum or something. So I put the Discman on, I played that for the first time, and I'm vacuuming. I'm just like, what? Yeah, just like, I didn't even care. I was just like, I was so zoned in. I must have vacuumed like the same spot like 40 times. So that's pretty much it.
How about you, Billy?
Sure. So I grew up in a very musical family. My grandmother was a choir director. My dad's a professional musician. I just grew up with music in my house. My parents started me on piano at a very young age, and I hated it. I wanted to be a drummer. I wanted to be a drummer, and my grandfather was a drummer. So when I would go over to is that my dog? That's not my dog, is it? But
I might have you back up a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll back up a little bit.
All right. I think Ted, there you go. Okay.
All right. So I'll back that up a little bit. So I got into Billy. I grew up in a very musical family. My grandmother was a choir director. My father was a professional musician. I was started at piano at a young age. I hated it. I wanted to be a drummer. My grandfather, who had passed away when I was just a baby, was a drummer, and his drums were in the basement of my grandmother's house. So I used to go over and just wail away on the drums all the time. But then as I got older, River of Dreams came out. When I say older, you know, I guess I forget how old I was, but it was pretty young. That was like, oh my gosh, there's a really cool person who plays the piano. I want to be just like this guy. And I got River of Dreams, which was my first album. Fell in love with it, and just took the book. I bought the book. The book's actually behind me right here. Took it to my piano teacher and said, I want to learn all these songs. I remember even in 5th grade, I dressed up as Billy Joel and went into my 5th grade class with a keyboard. And I was being interviewed as I was Billy Joel. And I took my keyboard in, I played. All the girls loved it. It was awesome. And Billy always says that too, like this, you know, go into a party and, you know, go to corner and play some piano. You just look at the piano and say, thank you. I still do that, you know, which is great. But I got a great wife, and that was kind of what, no, I've just, Billy's been one of these things, and it's as a musician, and just from a young age till now, I had all the CDs growing up. I bought all his records. You know, it's hard for me to explain. It really is. It's been you know, Billy's been such a huge influence in my life, you know, both musically, but also, I don't know the guy, but almost personally, you kind of feel like you know him through his music, right? Like you know his story. So that's been a huge inspiration to me. And that's kind of how I got started with Billy Joel.
Awesome. All right, so let's get into some deeper fan questions here. And so the next question is, what's one lyric that's always stuck out to you or has always resonated with you? So Mike, we'll start with you.
Well, I was trying to think of this question. I was just, nothing was really popping out. But then I remembered once back in high school, so this would have been about 1992, 93, I worked at a video rental store, and they had a copy of Live from Long Island that I'd pop in and watch nearly every shift. And it was a mom and pop store, so a lot of times we were empty, and I'd just sit and watch the TV. One time I was watching during Souvenir. I hadn't, at that point, never really listened closely to the words or see what he was singing about. And then I just remember when he hit that line, your mementos will turn to dust, but that's the price you pay. And it just, my eyes welled up, and I'm glad no one was in the store, because I think a tear came down. It just, for whatever reason, that lyric just hit close to home. And so that's what I'm going to say.
That's a great line.
Great. Yeah. How about you, Melissa?
So I think it kind of goes to the mindset. And if you talk to any Billy fan that I've ever met, they always say, you know, he wrote the soundtrack to your life. So depending on if you wanted to go sentimental, angry, however you wanted to go, you could pick a lyric. But the one that stands out to me, and every time we play this song on the show, I say, personally, I feel it is the most poignant lyrics he's ever written in 2,000 years. I just think that song is transcendent, really. So my lyric, ironically, and it can fit, especially in the world today, without compassion, there can be no end to hate.
Yeah.
And we do that.
Yeah.
I actually bring that up in my classroom when we do Martin Luther King stuff in particular. Like, we look at that, and we look at different examples of music tying into that mindset of how we get over the anger and the hate and things like that are in the world.
It's a great way to get into it. What grade do you teach, Melissa?
Second.
Second. How do the
Yeah.
kids react to that? Like, do you tell them that it's Billy Joel, or do you just give them the quote and go with it from there?
They know what classroom they're in the minute they walk in. They know that, you know, Mrs. Boileau wants to move to New York City like yesterday, and I have a bobblehead of Billy Joel. They are inundated with his music. And a couple of years ago, oh my God, more than a couple of years ago now, I had a class. Billy was coming here to play at the Carrier Dome, and I was trying to use the children to finally get to meet him. I'm like, I can do this. I can make a lesson. I can make it fit the standard. This is what we're going to do. So I had the kids sing New York State of Mind. They dressed up like all of the symbols of New York State. I had another class be the Broadway chorus line. I had every media outlet in Syracuse show up at my elementary school to film these children doing this song. But that class could identify within 5 notes every one of his songs on all 3 greatest hits albums. That is my claim to fame as an educator.
Job
5,
well
they
done.
got it. They knew it.
All right, Teddy, that's a tough act to follow, but what's one lyric that's always stuck out or resonated with you?
This is my life. Go ahead with your own life. Leave me alone. Especially nowadays, in the within the past month or 5 months. Yeah, that's me. Leave me alone. This is my life. Which is actually my, that and Scenes are my favorite songs. So I know that's another question, but yeah, go ahead with your own life. Leave me alone.
Awesome. All right. How about you, Billy?
Sure. Gosh, I'm going to say you can't be everything you want to be before your time. I'm kind of a late bloomer, I guess one would say. And that was a line that always resonated with me. And that's actually my favorite Billy song as well, with the end. So that lyric has always just struck a chord, no pun intended, but with my life. So.
Yeah. And you recently recorded that yourself, right?
I did. I did a track. I'll send it out to you guys if you guys want to listen to it. But I did a whole recording at a local studio here. I played the piano. I sang. I played synthesizers and I played drums. Did all the instrumentation. And rather than having an accordion player, I actually had a cellist do all of the solo parts.
Oh, that's great.
Which came out pretty
Wow.
cool.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear that.
So I took the meter up a little bit. It's a little faster than the original. But I got to tell you, it was actually really cool. I did post it on Facebook, and Mike Del Judas commented on it and went, "You sound great," and that made my entire 2020. So like that was pretty awesome. But no, that's definitely my favorite lyric. But Mike, real quick, you just mentioned the VHS tapes? Do you remember the VHS tapes, the green and the red one? I think it had all the old videos on it.
Oh
Billy
yeah,
videos.
I've got
Yeah,
those.
yeah. Oh yeah, those were great. I
With
used to rent.
that-
I used to rent those all the time. My mom would take me to the video store, and what do you want to get? I'll do the redwood this time.
when
Yeah.
the mom and pop video store eventually closed, I swiped them off the shelf.
Anyway, yeah.
You know, that's funny because my aunt made me a tape of it because they had the 2 VCRs. So I always had like a blank VHS. So I just now did I learn that there was a red one and what did you say, red and green?
Red and green.
Red and
or
blue.
blue, red and blue.
Red and blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never knew that. That's so funny. I just had them recorded. All right, Matt.
And
How
that's
about
back
you?
when that's back to when he was doing the videos, all the Glass House's videos with the live vocal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was different from the album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So well, first let's be real. That I think all of Summer Highland Falls could fall under like, you know, favorite lyric of, because he's just got so many poignant lines in that song. But I'm not really going to talk about that one. But mine, for me, I kind of have two, if I can break the rules a little bit.
Go for it.
But there's a line in the song "Code of Silence," which is like a deep cut from
Wow.
the bridge, and it says, "It's hard to believe after all these years that it still gives you pain, it still brings tears, and you feel like a fool because in spite of your rules, you've got a memory." So that just kind of sums up the fact that, like, you know, there could be something that you've carried with you all your life and you're fighting it, but like you kind of have to learn to you're not going to forget it, so you kind of have to learn to live beside it, you know. So that really was a big thing for me. And the other one for me, and this is kind of more when I was younger, but and by the way, one of probably my favorite Billy song, upbeat song, is "Sleeping with the Television On." And he says, "I really wish I was less of a thinking man
Nice.
and more a fool who's not afraid of rejection."
Yeah.
And like, man, to string a line like that, I mean, like, he's got to be like, thank you, you know, like when you come up with the line, because it just sums up perfectly what like you might be feeling, but you don't know how to express that. And it's just like, yeah, just stop thinking a minute, you know, like, why couldn't I be more of a fool? Why do I have to keep like rehashing things in my head over and over again? Which kind of goes back to the other lyric, I guess, I was talking about. But those would be my two.
I think there's a running theme in a lot of his lyrics with that, for sure.
Yep.
And speaking of Code of Silence, why has Billy and Crystal never done that song together?
I should.
Oh, for sure.
Why has Cyndi Lauper never showed up at the Garden? Because I will die. I will
I know.
die.
Seriously.
I thought the same thing.
Was she
She's
on
right
the last?
there.
She wasn't on the last Play It Shay, was she? Like one of the
No.
special?
Nope.
No. Okay.
No.
It seemed like everybody else was, except her.
Oh, I'm waiting.
never
And what's
brought that
going to
song
happen
out
is I'm
ever.
going to be watching it from being up here on a computer, and I'm going to flip out because I'm not going to be live to see that. But that's a moment I'm waiting for.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Billy went, you know, to return the favor, did a backup on one of her songs on one of her albums called Maybe He'll Know, I think it was called.
Yep.
It's on her At Last album, I
Okay.
believe.
Yeah.
Do young girls just want to have fun? Was he singing backup on that?
He's on a song.
He did the high part, the falsetto.
From the video, he can do the Captain Lou Albano part.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say Ultimate Warrior, but I knew that wasn't right, so I didn't say anything.
Had the rubber bands in his beard.
Yep.
That's right.
All right. I just thought of one because we were talking about the Garden concerts, and I don't know. Maybe we want to answer this one. Maybe we don't want to jinx anything. But I'm wondering if anybody wants to take guesses as to who the first Billy's already on this one. Who do we think is going to be the first special guest when the Garden concerts resume?
I hope
Liberty.
he has a bunch. I hope he has a
Yeah, I
bunch.
think-
That'd
yeah.
be good.
Liberty DeVito. Yeah.
I think it'll be Liberty. I think after they've made men's, if Liberty came back, that would just for one song, you know, that would just be, and it has to be Extremes. I would hopefully it'd be Extremes, you know, because that was his, you know, signature beat.
He wrote it for him. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my answer anyway. So.
I feel like that's like the Ringer one because I think we talked about that one too. Like that's.
Oh yeah. You and I talked about that off record, but it was like I've thought that since, you know, ever since I read the book, and I'm like, Liberty's has to be the first one back.
Right.
So.
Yep.
And I have tickets for the show. I can't wait. I'm actually, yeah, really stoked.
When is that? When's it?
November 5th. I have a chain. I have a countdown.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will tell you this. I'm not going to remember a single thing that happens that night, because the minute we pull our car out of the Lincoln Tunnel, I'm going to cry the entire time. That moment, and every time I have like a mental breakdown with this whole COVID thing, and we have to have like these Zoom calls with all my people, I can't wait for as many of us, which I'll get to in a minute, and like Mike Stutz, I'm glad you're here, as many of us being together in one place for that one show. As much as the crowd went crazy when Springsteen came out at the 100th show, I don't think the crowd at that first show is going to even compare with what happened when Springsteen came out. I mean, I already cry when the theme from The Natural comes on. I can't listen to it, even like on my show, I can't. I'm going to lose my mind for that. I don't care who the guest is. I just want it to be in November. I don't want to delay it anymore. And I want it to be no masks. I want to be there in the moment again, because I miss it more than I ever possibly thought I could miss something in my life.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Anybody else have any guests?
Any
I
other
don't think anybody's going to top that one. All right, Mike, you want to take the next one?
Yeah. So speaking of Liberty, so as far as band members go, yeah. So who's your favorite Billy Joel band member, past, present, Lords, non-Lords, anyone who's ever played with Billy ever in his career? We could go back to the Lost Souls and the Hassles. Let's see what you guys got. How about you, Mike?
This was a tough one, and it's because I've met so many of them from, you know, all the different combinations of the bands. Watching a concert, yeah, definitely Liberty. It's watching him bang on those drums it's the showmanship. It's just so fun to watch. It's like when I go to an Elton John concert, I'd sit and watch Ray Cooper the whole time, the percussionist, because that was the interesting part of the show. And watching Lib, or like in Live from Long Island, they're starting scenes. Everybody's got a glass of wine. He grabs the bottle for the toast. You know, just the things that make Liberty. And so, you know, he's the one that I like watching the most. But you know, I went out to New York in 2013 and got to meet the original band from the Piano Man tour, and those guys were just fantastic. You know, Richie Canada, I got to play with him on stage at the Bitter End. He invited me to his recording studio, let me take a video tour through it and watch him perform and record some actual tracks. So I was there. And you know, and then the current band, you know, Crystal, I've been chatting with her for a long time, especially all that she's gone through this last year. Just these guys feel like friends more than they feel like, you know, someone that played on the album. And then, you know, if I'm going non-Lords, I'd have to say, you know, Mike Del Judas. I've eaten supper at his house. He's an actual friend. We've, especially like when I was in bed with COVID back in March, he chatted with me a lot. He let me do some work for his YouTube channel and stuff like that. So it's just, he's the one that I'd say is as close to a friend. But I like, it's hard. It's like picking out your favorite child, just like
right. It is. How about you, Melissa?
I can't answer this question. This is the one I told you that you were going to hate me. I cannot answer this question. I will say this, and I'm going to feel really bad saying it in the company that I'm in, but I've said it on the show before, and it's just completely, I'm a total girl when it comes to this, but it's that relationship building piece. I don't want to say my loyalty. I 1000% appreciate, respect, admire the original guys that did the original stuff on those albums. But my heart is with those people that are on that stage at the Garden. I am not watching Billy anymore. I'm watching my friends on stage in front of all of these people performing. I watched the Shea Stadium concert and I cry hysterically because I'm looking at it going, these people have slept at my house. They've come to Teddy's birthday parties. It's not just, it's a totally different thing. I mean, if I did not know them, my answer would be different. I cannot choose one of them. They're some of my closest, and we don't make a big deal about it because we don't want to be those people, but like they've been to my house, they've had breakfast, they've slept over, they slept on my futon. Like it's a whole different thing. And then when you watch a show and you're seeing that, it takes on a whole new life. And this is for me, I never, ever would have thought that the position I'm in right now is anything I'd ever be. I was the little girl in 1990 sitting at this concert, looking at these people going, oh my God. And now they're on my futon. So it's way like never would I have expected it. But I can't answer
totally
that. So
with that.
that's my reason why.
Yeah. You know, real quick, just as Mike and Melissa just told those stories, and I'm thinking back to how quickly Mike Del Judas signed on to do the episode about Doug when we were, I think, 3 or 4 episodes in.
Yeah.
You know, it really is amazing how personable and down to earth these guys are. You know, I didn't know those 2 stories before, and just putting those together, I think that's a really unsung aspect of the band. Both the Lords and the non-Lords, that these guys are just, you know, really so of the people, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's nice to get all those stories in one spot, certainly.
And I think I have an idea of what Teddy's answer might be.
I think you might be surprised. You're wrong.
But I gotta say my favorite, honestly, is Andy Sachon. And there's Andy, we're friends, but he's my golf buddy. We play golf together.
That's awesome.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
We went on a golf trip down to Florida. You know, Chuck, Chuck is a very close second, but Andy, we have a lot in common. You know, he, being a drummer, when we first met, it was cool. He had, he's got a personality about him that is very, as a matter of fact, you know, just a solid dude that would be your neighbor. But there's some connections between drummers and bass players.
Yep. It's that rhythm section.
Yeah. Yeah. The rhythm section is just that the kindness of heart. You think alike. You're always in sync. And the fact that, you know, he's a golfer, I'm a huge golfer. We hit it off. My first person I ever met though was Chuck. But then again, I've had some great conversations with Carl. Actually, no, I think the first person we met was Mark.
Yeah, when we did
me
that
and Mark
big
drank
interview.
beer together.
The first meeting with Chuck was when you were naked on top of his truck.
No, that was the
That was
I want to hear that
and I
story.
wasn't naked on his truck. Oh, come on.
Mortified, absolutely mortified.
I wasn't naked on his truck. I had my shirt off, fixing his truck in a parking lot where he was with the Moving Out band, and the truck wouldn't start. And I'm a master technician by trade. I got his truck running.
And didn't want to get your shirt dirty.
I had a white shirt on. So
okay,
I get it.
White shirt on.
I feel you guys have had this argument before.
Yeah.
To Dennis and Wade, Dennis Salgadio and Wade Preston, and Dennis just turns and looks at me and he goes, "Does he know what he's doing?" Yeah.
Because I had a hammer. And I'm smashing the heck out of the starter on.
You had an
Chuck's truck.
SM57 is what you had.
Right, I could, yeah. But so anyways, I know we kind of.
And we had to drive the train back, and he couldn't find his shirt for a while because it was in the front of Chuck's truck. I'm like, we're not getting on that train with you shirtless. That's not happening on my watch.
That's
so
awesome.
Figure it out.
That's so good.
Yeah, it was messed up. But anyways, so yeah, so my answer to the question, Andy Tachon, final answer.
That's great. All right. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, so this is a tough question for sure, and I think as with my past answers to these questions, I think I've narrowed it down to 3. But I would say Richie Kanata is probably the guy that, like, just for the fact that he's a diverse, he's got that, like, he's a multi-instrumentalist, but he's also got the iconic sax sound that helped. Yeah. Billy form his signature New York sound. So there's that. And I'd also be remiss to say that Lib wasn't, noteworthy as well. Of course, he's the other signature guy. But I also want to note just a quick story about with Dave Rosenthal, because I was just graduating college in 2004, and it was a point in my life where I was like a crossroads where I could either stay. I was going to either stay on the East Coast and I was in Florida, by the way, but I was going to either stay on the East Coast or go out to LA. And I was thinking, I don't know what made me do it. I guess I was just doing some research, but he had a studio at the time, and I was looking for, I'd gone to school for audio engineering. So I was looking for internships to jump into. And he actually emailed me back and he said, I think, from what I remember, he said, if you can, get here, we'll see what we can do and see if we can make it happen. So he was going to, open that opportunity up to me. And I didn't ultimately, for various reasons, I just ended up taking the West Coast route, but I'm sure that he would have had a lot to teach me, and it would have just been a great experience. Because he wasn't playing with the band at that time. I don't know if he had planned on going back, but I think he was just doing his own thing. And of course, he's back with the band. So, and also,
that was like during the hiatus period. There was like a 2-year period where Billy really wasn't playing. So that was probably about that time.
Right. And this is like, I don't know if this is like a cool little tidbit or not, but when I looked up like all of Billy's like members throughout his career, and Reese Clark comes up, just a little bit a history I found out about him is he was in a band called The Executives. And then pretty much like not too many years later, he was playing on Piano Man, which is a song about Billy's experience at the Executive Room. So I thought that was a cool little tie-in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's clips on YouTube of him playing with the Executives. I was just looking at those the other day.
Oh, that's cool. I need to find that.
So Billy, what's your choice?
This is such a hard question.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's a loaded question, like literally. I love watching Crystal on stage. I really love her energy, and just the chemistry that she has with Billy after so many years. It really shows. Even watching the last planche, you think of Zanzibar, and she gives him the side eye. Yeah, he kind of changes the lyrics around a little bit, but it's one of the funniest things that, like, I don't think the average person would know, but I think we would all pick that up. And it's just like those little things. So I love watching Crystal. I love her energy. We've messaged each other back and forth. I've never met her. She doesn't have any probably clue who I am, but I love her energy, and I just love just the way she plays. I think she adds so much to the band with how much she has to offer as a saxophonist, as a vocalist, as a percussionist. I mean, she really is, in so many ways, the spine of that entire band. But I would say in previous terms, and Teddy, I might relate to you on this, is not Andy, but Doug Stegmeyer. I mean, Doug, he was just, what he was able to get out of the bass was just incredible. And as a drummer, that and you feel it, right? Like you can just feel it. So I think he's kind of the one member that everybody always is like, oh my gosh, it's Doug, but I think he doesn't get a lot of the credit for what he what he did. And I love the way he played bass. And, but to go back to you, Teddy, I mean, it's funny watching Andy play bass. I've never seen somebody groove and dance with a bass the way Andy is with the bass.
Yeah. That's right.
It's like it's weird. It's like
the way
it's such a groove that he has. And to listen to Chuck, who has done, he's taken what Liberty did and built on that, right? I mean, Chuck, some of the metal licks that he throws in, I think, Jack, you've mentioned this before in previous, using a double bass drum pedal, and things like that, that like.
He has a couple licks.
It's pretty remarkable. But no, I think if I had to say one, I really think Crystal will be my favorite. And every time he plays Extremes, when he yells out Crystal in the song, it's like
clear as a crystal.
Yes, I always feel it. That's just a cool little connection that the two of them have, and I think that's really cool. So I really appreciate her.
Can I jump in and say a really quick story about her? So the first time we met her, Teddy was recently, within a time period, diagnosed with diabetes. And when he first was diagnosed, he had neuropathy issues that were going on, which of course, as a drummer, that's petrifying. So we had mentioned it. I had talked to her, and we were sitting at a restaurant in New York after the concert. And I look over, and her and Teddy are sitting there praying together, praying over his feet that he would be healed. And I'm just going, we just met her, and she is going above and beyond. Teddy's feet are fine now, by the way, but she just, that energy and that positivity and who she is as a person.
And every time I see her, the first thing she asks is, how you doing?
Yep.
How's your sugar? Is the first thing she says to me.
That's so cool. I mean, the fact that you guys have those kind of connections, that's amazing. And those personal stories, right? Like that's so personal. And I'll
be honest, every single one of it's really true, and you don't realize it, I guess, until you do meet them. They're just like us. That they happen to just play. They do what we wanted to do is do that for a living, make great money, and do it in front of crowds that are just. I mean, what do you say? Like the other night, I call Melissa my little social butterfly, social media butterfly.
Someone's got to be.
We put on the Last Play at Shea DVD. She took a picture and posted it online.
So
next thing you know,
did you see that? I was crying.
I know, I saw it.
Seriously.
So
I miss my friend.
Next thing you know, Andy responded about her putting that on there, and he said greatest moment of his life was that Last Play at Shea when McCartney came on stage.
Followed by tell her to turn it off and she won't be crying.
right.
Yes.
But they're just down to earth people, and after a while it's they're just friends, but then when you see them at the concert or when you see them up there playing, I gotta admit, Melissa, I mean, look, none of this would be happening if it wasn't for Billy. I mean, Billy's one of the most iconic singer, songwriter, performers, period, of all time. And they all support him in doing that, and they all do a phenomenal job, right from the first band member all the way up. From the first band to now the band. But they're really, really cool people, and I haven't met one of them yet that's a jerk.
No,
they're
same
just
here.
so personable, and they're happy and thankful. They are humble. They are. They're humble. They're humble that they have this to do as a job, and they've been able to make a career out of it. And and I'll tell you one thing about Billy, the crew, the band, he's taking care of all of them through this whole time.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Even the crew, they got like a crew of 45 people. So they're just great people to to commiserate with, especially, the thing I kind of noticed is we're all musicians here. Well, I don't want to, Melissa, I don't mean to, I know you're my wife. I love you, but we're all musicians. So we have that fire. We have that thing that burns in us, and that's communicative. And the fact that we appreciate them as musicians and people, they appreciate us too.
Yeah.
It's
Teddy, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think it's so cool that guys like Mike and Carl and even Crystal with her Facebook Lives, they're welcoming them into their houses too, right? Think about that 20 years ago. That would never happen, right? So there's such a personalness that, I love watching Mike on the porch, and just, you kind of feel like, and you might send a little message or something, and he'll say, "Hey, Billy, Andy, how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, he said my name. Very cool." But
right.
It's so cool to have those kind of connections. And even though 2020 sucked, I got to tell you, for me personally, I discovered Retold in 2020, right? I've been a Billy fan my entire life, but there's a community that I almost feel like I'm virtually friends with all these people, and it's pretty cool. And I think the band misses it just as much as we do. That's why they're opening, these, their computers and their Facebook Lives to us to really still have that opportunity to see them and interact with us as well. On that note, do you mind if I get a beer real quick? Is that all right?
Go ahead. Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
You're bringing up
just on a quick story on how down to earth these guys are. When we were with Mark Rivera, when they were up here at the Dome, we took them out to dinner afterwards to a place that had a live band playing.
Yeah.
He literally, the manager came over, knew who he was, asked, "Do you want to play at all with the band?" He goes, "Yeah, why not?" I ran outside, got his sax, brought it. He went up on stage to play with just these other musicians that he just met in a local little bar. There wasn't this, "What are you kidding me? I just got done playing the Dome." There was none of, there wasn't a hesitation.
No.
"Oh, you guys want me to play with you? Oh, I'd love to."
Yeah.
But your hesitation, Teddy, was, "Oh my God, if I get hit by a car right now and I have Mark Rivera's saxophone in my hand and he's got to play at the Dome tomorrow night, I'm screwed." Yes.
Right.
Yes, you were.
It's just, amazing how, like I said, how humble all of them are. None of them have a chip on their shoulder.
Well, that was the same way too when I first met Liberty. Gosh, we're going 20 years back now. We had exchanged emails for a couple months before he and I met, but the first time he and I actually met was at his house. And from the get-go, he literally opened his home to me, and they treated me like family from the get-go. His whole family were just so nice, warm, and just treated you like they've known you their whole life and still do. It's amazing.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah. It's funny, Michael, too, because that was a story you told on our first episode. And
that's right.
So even as we talk, I got this, I got the kind of part of the story there. All right, they were closed for a couple of years. They did this, they did that. Then when we had Liberty on, and he launches into all these other stories that you hadn't told yet, and I realized I didn't even understand the depth of how close you guys were back then. That was really cool.
Yeah, we were pretty well joined at the hip for that time in Florida, and some of those stories I didn't even remember till he started telling me. He used to play in 5 million bands when he was off the road with Billy, and he only had one kit at home. His touring kit was on the road, and so he would use my drums for shows, and we would just share gear and all this. I remember at one point thinking I'm like, I think I need to do drums. These drums just don't sound good. And the first time he sat down and Liberty played them, I'm like, oh, it's not the drums. They sound great now.
Right.
I asked Liberty once what happened to all of his old touring drums, right? the turquoise kit from Russia, you know, and apparently they've been like donated to churches and things like that, he said, and schools, which blew my mind, thinking that like there's some kid playing this drum set, you know, and it probably has no idea where it's been, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think Andy tracked down the Bridge Tour kit at the church it's at on Long Island. I remember for a while he kept the snare drums from each tour, and they were set up in his office, which was also the makeshift rehearsal studio. That was another like, oh, they're just one of us moment. It's like, oh, this is my office, but then when the guys are over, it's the band room. You know, it's just like your house. And he kept every snare drum from all the tours, and I knew which was which. And I remember that kind of freaked him out for a minute. He's like, how do you know that that's from that tour? He's like, that's insane.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I went down a bit of a rabbit hole today, and apparently Billy's piano from the executive room, somebody has that.
Mike saw it. Yeah.
You did? Okay.
I played on it. I played the intro to.
Can you have it?
There's a website, New York Pop Spots NYC, where this guy has gone out and tracked down like the locations of all these famous photographs of rock stars, and mostly album covers. He finds the locations. That's how I found like the Innocent Man steps and the turnstiles and stuff like that. He did a page on the executive room, you know, what it is now. It's a strip mall now, and he had pictures of it now. And then he superimposed a photo he found of the executive room from back in the 70s or whatever. And he had tracked down and found that it was like the manager of the bar back then. When they closed, he took the piano that Billy had played on for 6 months or whatever it was. And so I asked him, you know, I'm this big fan. Can I get this guy's contact information? And he did. And my family he lived in Orlando, and my family happened to be going on a trip to Disney World that year. So it was about 20 minutes away. It took a little trip. Kim Guerriero from Retold lives down there. She works at Epcot, and gave me a ride, and we went and met this guy. Real nice guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he had the piano, hasn't tuned it or anything, so it sounded horrible. But I just sat down, and it's one of the tour videos that I posted, where filming on it and opening it up and looking around in it, and I sat down and played the intro to Piano Man, but it was like, you know, 2.5 steps off.
What year was that? When was that?
When did I see it? That would have been 2015.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So, but yeah, that was kind of different.
I watched that video, Mike, and he was so nice. He actually wheeled the piano out from the wall and everything.
Yeah, so we could see behind it, and I'm like looking for an autograph or something that he might Bill has signed it. So
pretty
awesome.
awesome.
His word for it, but you know, seemed pretty legit.
That's like that's like the LA that I like pine for, is like, you know, I wasn't a part of that era, obviously, because that was like back in the 70s. But when you see like those few snaps that were taken from, like, you know, it's just a snapshot in time of, you know, some like, you know, 70s, like, you know, Hawaiian themed holiday party going on. And like, you know, somebody's over in the corner playing the piano on that like grand piano shaped, you know, booth that they had there. It's just so cool to see that and try to put yourself back in that time, you know, when he might have been there, and like no one knew what was about to happen, you know?
I tell you that I just thought my other first impression when I met Liberty too, was how loud of a drummer he was. First time I met him was at a funk club rehearsal at his house, like I said. So he answered the door, introduced me to his family, and the band was already in the office starting to get set up. And it's kind of a small standard size home office. And he just grabs a computer chair and sets it down next to his floor tom. It's like, have a seat. So I'm sitting here to my screen from him, and they go into one of the songs, and I think I'm just now getting my hearing back after that first day. So loud.
All right. Okay, moving on. All right, so kind of another general question. We'll go around. what was your first Billy Joel concert? If you can remember, the year of the tour, things
You
like
skipped
that.
are we going to do the YouTube clip question?
Oh yeah, you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
go ahead and do that one.
Good. I like that one better. Yeah.
That's my
All right. So next, I think we're going to dance about architecture a little here and start describing videos. But I wanted everyone here to recommend their favorite Billy Joel YouTube clip. So not an official video or a song, maybe an unofficial concert snippet, an interview, a cameo, something like that.
So is it cameo on Billy or any of his band members?
Anyone.
Question. Yeah.
Teddy's got a really
open
great
it up.
answer.
Yeah, I want to hear
Open it
this.
up.
Teddy's got a great answer.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, yeah. All right. We'll start with you, Teddy.
Oh, all right. I gotta say, I love it.
You're all gonna have to go look this up after. You have
You
to.
gotta
look
shut
this
your
up.
door in the office.
Okay.
I'm gonna
All right.
look it up as you're talking about it.
Hide your cats, hide your dog.
All right. So, well, again, Andy Sashone, when he played in what was the
Judge
name of the band?
Mercy.
Yes, Judge
Judge
Mercy. There's a video of Andy. He's the lead singer and rhythm guitar player. He plays phenomenal guitar. The Time for Talk is Over is a video that was done at his band in Judge Mercy before he came here to the States in Australia. 80s
Mortified.
hair band to the max.
He
And
was.
he just playing.
Oh, there it
With
is.
the hair.
There it is.
The hair. He's just throwing the hair back. Oh, I love it. I see that and I smile and
Oh my
it
God.
just gets me.
We aired it on the show, and then Andy calls us and goes, "Really? Really? How did you find that?"
Oh, that's amazing.
We do
He's
our
got
homework.
He's got a good voice. He's got a good voice and he actually can hit a high C.
Wow.
He's the lead singer. He was the lead singer of that band.
He was the lead singer of Judge Mercy. The Time for Talk is Over. It's just typical 80s hair band in a small rock. Oh my, it's awesome.
Love it.
You can tell I was an 80s guy, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
same.
I'm just looking at the thumbnail clip of this on YouTube, and it's like they look like out of Airheads. What was it? The Lone Rangers.
The Lone Rangers.
Yeah. So that's my favorite outtake.
That's a good one.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a good one. How about you, Mike?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, this is tough because back in '94, I started collecting, TV clips and stuff like that people and trading them, and I kept a copy of everything I came across. So I've just seen a day's worth of footage, I'm sure. But narrowing it down for this, I came up with there is a promo video that he made when Billy was in Home Run Music, or that was the name of his company, Home Run. And they did a promo video advertising the Turnstiles album, where it starts out just him on the piano. He's like, "Oh, hi, I'm Billy Joel. You know me," and just totally lounge singer. And then he'd introduce the people, and it's hilarious. It was just funny. It shows the humor side of him even way back then. So that's one of my three that I recommend. What's Turnstiles promo clip, I think, is what it's listed as on YouTube. Second one would have to be there was a soundboard recording of a sound check they did back in 1977. It's called The Stranger Sound Check, and I'm pretty sure it was recorded at the Coliseum. I'm not sure on that, but it's about an hour and a half long, and it's just a hilarious sound check and the stuff they're doing. He's doing impressions. He's making up stuff on the fly, just going off on riffs he's coming up with. There's a version of Moving Out where they're changing it, where he's like, it seems like a waste of time. Oh no, if that's what you have in mind. Yeah, that's what you have in mind. Mama, if that's what you have in mind, that's what you have in mind. Moving around, playing in the wrong keys, just stuff like that. And it's just hilarious the whole way through. And it's fun. They're getting the sound system ready, but just listen to that kind of talent when you're just goofing around. It's hilarious.
Mhm.
And then the last one I wanted to bring up was, and this kind of goes into the next question, your first Billy Joel concert. There's a clip I put out there. It's just audio, but I put photos to make something to look at. The first concert I went to was Face to Face in Ames, Iowa. And it was the same weekend as Woodstock 94. And so he ended up doing a tribute to Woodstock, and they sang the whole song of Joe Cocker's With a Little Help from My Friends.
Yep.
And that's kind of the thing that started me on collecting recordings. That was 94. And once I heard on the internet that people record concerts and trade concerts, I made it a goal that I was going to find somebody that had recorded that concert. And about 10 years later, I found someone who happened to. I've found a couple different copies now. And it was that song that basically I wanted a recording of him singing that song. And I've all this stuff I've collected in my whole Retold group. That it was because I wanted to find that song. So I made a video of it. It's called Billy Joel Tribute to Woodstock.
Wow.
Cool. All right.
We actually talk
Matt,
about that. It's funny you mentioned the Turnstiles promo clip. We just put out an episode on 1976, and we dig into that one a bit as well. Because I know a couple of years ago, Legacy Recordings cleaned it up and put it out on YouTube as well. And like you said, that's just like the perfect snapshot of Billy not taking anything too seriously in the mid 70s. Just, this is ridiculous, so I'm going to have fun with it. It's great.
Yeah.
We have that
Yeah, funny-
audio, that beginning audio. Hi, this is Billy Joel, that we've used on the show before.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah, funny enough, that episode just came out today, and we're recording this tonight, and so it's
Yeah,
funny to
talking
bring that
about
one up. Yeah.
It's a good
All
clip.
right, Matt. Matt,
Yeah,
how about you?
I want to. I guess I'll preface it by saying that I don't know if any of you have found these videos, but there's like, if you have the My Lives box set, there's a bunch of obviously unreleased demos and unreleased songs out there, but YouTube has like a handful of them as well. And there's one called like Untitled Rare Demo, and like it's like a nondescript name, and I don't think he ever had a name for it, but he references the phrase "simple joys of life" a couple times. So if you wanted to kind of like pinpoint it by that, but there's that one. And this isn't like my final answer, by the way, but I just wanted to put that out there for your listeners if they want to try to find these. But there's also another one called "Where's the Revolution," which sounds like somewhat like a Big Star song.
Yeah.
And there's a couple more of them, but if you find those, you might get linked to the other ones. But anyway, the one that I wanted to point out, have any of you ever heard the Silver Bells recording
with Steve
you
Martin?
Yeah, yes, it's great.
Okay. Well, then I'll just put that out there for anyone who hasn't heard it, because that's like one of my favorite little like nuggets, where Billy's on the piano and on the backing vocal, Paul Simon's doing the lead vocal, and in the middle of it, Steve Martin just does this hilarious, I think it's an off the cuff kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's gold, and it's silver bells. But you can find it. Just type that in. You'll be glad you did.
What Christmas means to me, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, now I give this to Billy, the man that at least almost once a week emails me a random Billy Joel clip and says, "Hey, check this out." And
I have fun with
on the podcast. Yeah.
I have fun with it. What can I say? All right, top three, real quick. There's a video from I think it's in DC back in 2009, where Elton John breaks the sustain pedal on his piano, and Billy is on the ground fixing Elton John's piano in front of 60,000 people. It's amazing, and Elton's there like cussing up a storm, going, "Oh, this really sucks," But that's a great one. Jack, when I sent you, I think most recently was the video in Rome when Billy's playing "Angry Young Man," and the whole piano just goes silent, and Billy just looks up and he's just like, Are you kidding me? Like, if there's one thing that you can't screw up at a Billy Joel concert, is the piano. Like, you can't have the piano come out at a Billy Joel show. It's a great clip. And this one I'll go a little deep. 98 in Philadelphia. There's 2 live videos, and on the second of the 2 live videos, he's playing "Keeping the Faith." And back then, Billy had those the synthesizers back on either side of the back of the stage, and he's playing it, and he would spin them. He would spin the pianos once in a while, and the boom mic was actually attached to the piano. And I don't know who the stagehand was, but the boom mic was not completely attached. So when Billy spins the piano, the mic boom is coming around about 3 seconds behind it very fast. And Billy has to duck out of the way as this boom mic almost nails him right in the face. Like, and he's just like, it's one of the funniest things. And you see all the stagehands running out right away to like try to fix the problem. But like literally just fast forward to Keeping the Faith, and he's spinning the piano around. All of a sudden, this boom arm just like, he ducks out of like the way, like with a half a second time, or he would have been like.
And that's why
it would have looked worse.
That's why you have to be a boxer before you learn to play.
I was gonna say it would look worse than the boxing. So those are my top 3.
And then real quick though, Billy, because I think now we're gonna have to do an episode just of clams, so we'll be like Spinal Tap moments. Now that's different from the other one with the boom, where the mic keeps falling, right? Which song was that? Pressure.
That was from Pressure, yes, and it just kept falling down.
Perfect song for it to keep falling down.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Well, Jack,
there's one more real quick. And we were talking about Brian Ruggles earlier. Billy did a night of questions and answers here at University of Pennsylvania. I think back, I don't know if it was late 90s or early 2000s, and he would always close those shows out playing Piano Man. I saw him do it at University of Delaware back in '97, but Billy puts on a harmonica, and the harmonica is placed in upside down. So when he goes to go play the harmonica, it sounds completely backwards. And he stops in the middle of the intro and just looks in the back and he goes, "Thanks, Brian." It's really funny. So that's a good clip to find as well.
Yeah.
Jack, you and I have started picking up on some of the tech issues when we've been digging into some of these shows. Early on, he would do that. Was it the technical difficulty blues when there was something wrong?
Yeah, at the Orpheum when the piano pickup wasn't working.
The Countryman pickup.
Countryman pickup.
And he goes on this tirade and tells the audience to nenever buy one because he hates it.
That was like after he goads the sound guy for 3 songs in a row.
I told you not to put this on.
Yeah. Cling, 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 cling. Yeah. All right. Take the next one, Michael.
Yeah. So speaking of live shows, I always like to know when people saw Billy for the first time and if you have any memories surrounding your first show. So Mike, what was your first Billy show?
Well, like I was saying before, I saw him and Elton together in Ames, Iowa in August of 1994. This was back before the internet and before Ticketmaster online. So I actually got to camp out for tickets. I went 1 a.m, went down to Ticketmaster. It was an indoor place. I'm in Minnesota and this was in the middle of winter, but it was in a grocery store. They had a little Ticketmaster and I just camped out on the floor for about 8 hours. Second person in line didn't show up for another 6 hours. And I ended up and then I had a friend of mine come and you were each able to buy 8 tickets. So and you had to have cash back then. So I was sitting in a grocery store for 8 hours all night with a grand cash in my pocket. But so we ended up getting about 16 tickets to this concert. First 6 of them were in the front row. There was a special, I don't know if it was VIP, but there was 5 rows in front of us, a 5-row section, then a little space, and then we had the front row of the first big section, which was good because then we had room to dance, and it was It was fun. He, like I said, he did the tribute to Woodstock. Back then he'd run out in the audience, like you see in Russia. He actually ran off the stage out into it's a stadium, the football stadium with the sides going up. He actually ran out into one of the sides during Only the Good and was running through, and it looked like he was going to run right to me and then turned up and went back to the stage. So just stuff like that I can remember from the and it was, like a 3.5 hour drive with 15 friends to back and forth. It was a good first concert.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Melissa, how about yours?
So Mike, remind me, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but some of the greatest memories I have are standing in line for concert tickets and the friends that I've made while doing that. So I'll tell you another time about that. But my first concert was, I was 11 years old, and it was the first time Billy played the Carrier Dome here. It was the Stormfront tour. So it was February 2nd, 1990. And if you know anything about Central New York, you do not want to be here from the months of, lately it's December through, could be June. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible snowstorm. Getting up to the Carrier Dome is a feat in and of itself. It's placed in a very horrible location of the city. He sold out 2 nights back to back, and I was at the first night. And that was the first concert I ever saw was Ray Charles when I was 7. But Billy was my second concert at the Dome. And it was kind of just one of those things that I will always, it's probably honestly one of my earliest memories, even though I was 11, of just being there and taking it all in. There is a great YouTube clip of the entire concert. So when I listened to that, and it's got the Wizard of Oz intro that happened during that tour, it is amazing to sit back and listen to it and go, my God, I was there. And to have a recording of it. And when you guys were talking about snippets earlier, Teddy did his, I'm going to throw in mine. There was a version of when he did Extremes at the Garden on March 21st, 2019, which was my 40th birthday gift from Teddy to me, was going down there. And it was the very first time I was ever in the front. And as soon as I got up there, he played that song, which I always say is my theme song, pre-medication. But that was kind of, as far as concerts goes, that moment, that show.
Amazing. I didn't realize that your first Billy show was 10 days before mine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mine was mid-February as well in Detroit.
Oh, so you had weather too then.
Yeah. And unlike Mike, we didn't have the luxury of waiting in a grocery store to buy tickets. We had to camp out outside in December in Detroit. I remember it was so cold. Yeah.
See, I got lucky with early on, I had connections at the university. And I was 11, so they weren't going to let me, sit outside at 11 years old. But I did for some other shows at the Dome, and those memories, man, I think people nowadays are missing out on that, camping out, waiting for concert tickets. You got the map in your pocket of what the stadium is. So when they tell you where your seats are, you can look at it and be like, okay, no, yes, no, yes. And you got to talk really quick and who wants this and who wants that? It's it's like being in Wall Street.
I know. Absolutely. Wow. That's wild. Yep. Same tour. That's crazy.
That's really cool.
Teddy, how about you?
My first concert was at Madison Square Garden. I think it was in 2017. Is that the right one for his whatever his 61st birthday was?
No. If any of you listened to our show this past week.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. All right. Hush up. Hush. Quiet.
It's like I'm listening to the show right now.
I know. Is this something?
Right.
All right. So, no, it was his 61st concert. No. It was his 61st time playing the Garden. Wasn't it? The most consecutive shows, was it? It had something to do with the number 65, and it was at Madison Square Garden, and she'll tell you the rest. But that was my first Billy concert, believe it or not.
His first concert was at the Garden, May 9th, Billy Joel's 65th birthday show, where Howard introduced him because he was just on the town hall with Howard. Teddy and I got in a huge bet about this on our show Sunday because he swore it wasn't his first show.
I lost.
That was his first show. He's getting that confused with the show that we were at to when Billy hit his 65th run of the residency, which is where he's getting confused with his numbers.
See, I had the number 65 in there.
Was that the birthday concert where he had the birthday cake with a motorcycle coming out of it? Do you remember those pictures I've posted?
I do. Yes, I think that was. I do remember the pictures. That was my first time ever at the Garden, and that's like Mecca to me because it's like, holy cow, I'm seeing him in his hometown. But I don't remember. That was pre us spending time in VIP, so I don't know.
Back in the old days, yeah.
Back when the tickets were so hard to get too.
Yeah.
I remember my first time into New York. I used to come to New York for the New York Auto Show every April, and
very cool.
My first time there, it happened to coincide with the Garden Show. 3 of the 4 years I went, there was a Garden Show, and I think the other year there was a Big Shot and a Lord Show, so it worked great.
Wow, nice.
Yeah,
very good.
But the very first year, there was not a ticket to be had, nothing. I even called Jeff Schock. I'm like, listen, I got cash money. I'm paying, no problem. I said, I just need to get in the door. And he was like, he couldn't scrounge up anything.
Wow.
Nothing. I found a single ticket from somebody on Retold who needed the money, so decided not to go. She took the train into Manhattan, and Jen wasn't feeling good that day, so she sat out and met her in front of the Garden. She hung with me till the ticket got scanned, and I went. But they were so hard to get then early on in the residency, I remember.
Yeah.
Wow.
Matt, how about you? Your first Billy show?
Yeah. Okay. So Billy, you were talking about in '98 the Philly shows.
Yeah.
I was at one of those. I'm not sure how many he played that year, but this was it was supposed to be in '97. And also, I mean, it was my first Billy show at my first concert as well, but there was one of the ones that he kept postponing. So yeah. I'm not even certain of the actual date. But it's funny because the way that I came into the tickets, I told my parents that year that I wanted, that this would have been in '97 and Christmas that year. I said, all I want is to go to a Billy show. And so they didn't know that I was a fan. They didn't know, they would always kind of wait to see how what my connection was and how much into him I was. But there was one, I remember them at one point, one day, I think my mom or somebody was they were like, do you want to watch the Behind the Music? It's on Billy Joel. It's coming on now. And I was like, no, it's all right. And so later on, she comes to me and she's like, "Are you sure you're a Billy Joel fan? Because you didn't want to watch the Behind the Music." And I was like, "I've seen it 4 times already." And she's like, "Oh, okay." So I was kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, maybe that means that she's just feeling it out, and maybe I'm actually gonna get the tickets. So that year, Christmas comes and it's Christmas Day. I'm opening all the gifts and everything, and I come to the last gift, and I'm almost beside myself because I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm not gonna go because I had no tickets so far. And then I'm like, wait a minute, the stocking, I still have hope. I go through my stocking, and it was the last thing in the boot, in an envelope. So I was like, that was the greatest thing ever. It's the only thing I wanted, and my first concert, which I will say that I purposely passed up a Reba McEntire concert so that I could go to a Billy Joel concert as my first and say it was my first one. So
that's awesome.
That's cool.
Wow.
Billy, how about you?
Nothing against Reba. Can I just say that?
So
she's great. She's great.
So there's my ticket from that '98 show. It was February 18th, but my first show was I think September 28th, '93 or '94. It was the kickoff to the River of Dreams tour that year. And I think it was September 28th.
That would
94.
have been
93.
93?
Yeah.
October 94, I saw him in Fargo, and that was the last American
All
show.
right, so I saw the first set of shows because he started off, I think, in Philadelphia. Because I remember, I think he did 4 shows, and then there was a break until October, I think, because the monster truck rally came into the Spectrum or something like that. But
Right.
He came up here after you for that tour, so he was down with you in Philly, and then he came up here to Syracuse in October.
Yeah, and then no, it was a similar story. My sister took me to the show, which was pretty awesome. I still have my 2 T-shirts that I got. You know, the traditional black River of Dreams T-shirt that has River of Dreams, and then the hunter green one has a little emblem on the side. But that was my first show. You know, my second show was '98. But this is a funny story, and I don't mean to take a whole lot of time, but when Billy Elton came in, I guess maybe it had been 2001, maybe. I forget exactly what year. I asked my parents if I can get tickets to the show, and they said, no, they're too expensive. You're not going. Well, my mom left her purse out, and I ended up ordering 12 tickets.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
And
he's alive to tell the story.
Yeah.
I ordered 12 tickets, and most of them were crappy seats up, but then I ordered 2 on the ground. I ended up selling all the tickets for actually more than I bought them for, and I was like, "This is great." My parents actually went to the show.
Oh,
Believe it or not, like I was in trouble. Don't get me wrong, but my parents weren't going to pass up an opportunity to see Billy Joel. So, but I didn't realize back then that a floor seat all the way in the back really kind of sucks because like you have to you can't really see anything in front of you unless you're just tall, and I'm pretty short. So as soon as the lights dimmed and the intro music started playing, I jetted down the center aisle and jumped the railing. And I literally was with my elbows on the stage like this the entire concert. And you could see me in the Jumbotron. And my parents were in the back. And I'm like this during We Didn't Start the Fire touching Billy's leg, you know? And it was like, it was just a really funny story. But no, my parents never let me let that down. But I think I ended up spending like $1,200 on my mom's credit card to buy all these tickets.
Wow.
So,
how did you get up front without security stopping you?
I ran as fast as I could, and I jumped, and nobody said a damn thing.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And it was literally, it was when the lights, it was completely dark. You couldn't see. I mean, like, everybody was standing and cheering. Everybody was going crazy. And I just jumped that front fence, that little railing. And people are kind of looking at me like, here are you, where's your wristband? I'm kind of like, hey, how are you? And just kind of like, I shimmied up and literally, I knew Billy was always to that side of the stage, and I wanted to place myself over there. But literally, it was the greatest thing. It was like 2 feet in front of Billy the entire show, which was amazing. So anyway.
Great story.
That's a great story.
Yeah. And I lived to tell about it.
Yeah.
You did. That's even more
Well, you
impressive.
turned a profit. That's why.
Yay!
Right. Yeah.
All right. Last question, guys. Thanks for hanging out, man. This has been great. We didn't know how this was going to go, and this has been a lot of fun. I hope you guys are having a good time too.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Cool. All right. So we're going to wrap up with this one. And, I wrote this one last, and it sounded like it'd be a good tie-up one, but we probably run through a lot of these already. But still, just to close everything out, I'd love to know everybody's strongest non-concert memory of Billy or his music, be it, meeting someone or a moment that really meant something to you. Just, if there's one thing you'd want the listeners to take away from your relationship to Billy and his music, what would it be? And so, Mike, we'll start with you.
What I figured on this, so I started Retold in 2011. 2 years later, I decided, the original band was recreating the Sigma Sound concert, and they were going to play at the bitter end. I bought a ticket. I'm out here in Minnesota. I'm like, well, let's see if I can get this to work. took a trip, and I spent about a week and a half out on Long Island, just hanging out with people from the group. And if you go on YouTube, if you search Billy Joel location tours, and then like with different years, starting in 2013 and 2014, I've done several trips out. But that first trip out, Andy Gilmartin took us around, and we saw so many neat things that I felt like was at church. You know, he took us to see the Glass House from the Glass Houses cover. It happened to be vacant, so we actually snuck back onto the patio and got pictures recreating it.
Yeah.
Another thing that totally humbled me was he took me to Doug Stegmeyer's childhood home where his mom still lived. And we hung out with her for an afternoon, her telling us stories. There were gold and platinum records on the wall. Doug's old piano that he used to play was there. It was an out of body experience. I'm like, I don't belong here. How did I get here? What's going on? So if you look at those videos that I posted from, you know, the Innocent Man steps, the turnstile steps, we found the place where they filmed, you know, the bridge, the Queensboro Bridge from You're Only Human, where the kid goes up. Just seeing these things in real life that I'd always seen on CD covers and stuff like that. It was cool. And that's one of the big parts in the group that I've tried to do, that along with getting the musicians and the members of the band's recognition, going, you know, even all the way back to Cold Spring Harbor. Just letting them know. A lot of the band members have joined the group because of the positive interactions they've had, and just letting them know we haven't forgotten about them. That was one of the big things a couple of years ago. Al Hertzberg, who was the guitar player in that first tour, he kind of became a recluse. He didn't really go out or talk to people anymore. And one of his relatives had joined the group, and I told him we got him a platinum record award for his contribution to Piano Man, and a few retolders went over and presented it to him, and he was just so happy to know that he hadn't been forgotten. And so I just kind of made that the mission. You know, one of the missions of the group was just to spread what these people have done and let them know we haven't forgot about them.
Great. Melissa, how about you?
So I'm not going to cry when I say this. I've always said that on my gravestone when I die, I want it to be written that I was known as that girl from Syracuse who loves Billy Joel. But I owe this 100% to you, Mike Stutz. So I'm so glad that you are here. As Tommy Byrne says, my little radio show in Syracuse has, honest to God, and not being too cliche about it, has truly changed the course of my life. The people that I have met,
come on,
because of my little radio show, and because of that Retold page, they became like listeners of the show, and then fans, and then friends, and now these people are my family. And I finally feel like after years, I have a core group of people, and we are not close to one another at all, but we are bonded forever from Billy and his music. And he literally has brought us, and if it were to all go away tomorrow, I would want nothing more than to keep these people in my life for the rest of my life, because I don't want to know a day without them anymore. So
I remember when you started this show, you felt like you had to come and ask me permission.
I didn't want to, because I never want to step on anybody's toes. I'm always afraid I'm going to say something wrong or do something wrong or bother somebody. So I wanted to make sure it was okay to post it out there.
You've done wonderful. You've done a wonderful job with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We try. Marriage counselors, I'm sure, love us. But...
That's the truth.
We got to post some screenshots because there's some great faces. All right, Teddy.
I had a couple. Playing golf with Andy was one. Working on Truck's truck. But I did meet one of my drumming idols because of Billy. We went to a concert. After the concert, we went to the bar with the band and so on and so forth. And then after that, we walked around the corner to the pizza shop where we typically go at 3:30 in the morning after the bar. And next thing I know, in the pizza shop, this woman comes in, stumbling drunk, bumps into my wife. My wife starts getting pissed off and says, "Who does she think she is?" Blah, blah, blah. And I look over, I see her, and I look who she's with, and I walk up to the guy.
No. You got on your phone to look up to make sure you were right because you were being.
Well, I want to make sure I was right. Yeah. And I knew, so I knew it. I went up and I bumped him and I said, "Hey," and I looked, "You're Taylor Hawkins, aren't you?"
Oh, that's cool. Wow.
Next thing I know, I turn around, his wife is sitting at the table with my wife and they're talking. We go over, we spent the next 45 minutes to an hour talking with Taylor Hawkins. He's a huge Liberty fan.
Yes.
Talking about Liberty, talking about Dave Grohl.
Yep.
Talking about Foo Fighters, and then talking about life. It was pretty awesome. Taylor Hawkins is,
I know he did he must have been a Dennis Wilson fan too, because he was on recordings of there was a song, it was like on Dennis's like Pacific Coast song. I forget what the name of it. He had a solo album that he put out, and Dennis filled in on drums on one of those songs that wasn't fully like formed yet. You know, obviously after Dennis died, but so yeah, that's something else to check out too.
Yeah. So yeah, I got her. You know, I even at one point that was my Facebook profile picture was me and Taylor Hawkins, and I got to admit that was, you know, I love the guys in the band, met all of them, but like that was a one-up. You know, I'm sure I'll never see the guy again, but to sit down like and it was just cool because he really was. Taylor Hawkins is just, and he's just again, down to earth, humble guy.
Yeah.
Wife and him were kind of hammered, and it was fun. It was a ride.
They were gonna hire me to teach their children at home. I was like, yes, I'll teach. Sign me up.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And you know, when you say, you know, oh, go to get pizza at 4 a.m, 3 a.m. in New York, you don't blink an eye. That sounds totally normal for the city.
Right, it's what you do.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, all right, it's 3:30. Let's go to Ray's and get a slice.
Yes.
And that's where it was. It was at Ray's.
See,
that's what you do.
Yeah.
I can't tell you if it was Famous Ray's or Original Ray's. It was one of the Ray's.
Famous Original Ray's.
Famous Original, right?
Just original, Jerry.
Yeah, that's good one. Good one.
How about you, Matt?
Mine would be I had kind of a special bond with my high school history teacher. You know, obviously because you know he was a big Billy Joel fan as well, so I kind of looked up to him for that. So somehow it came about that we were gonna work out a few tunes. He was gonna sing them, and I played piano on them, and we actually did. So my senior year, we performed at one of our holiday concerts. We did Piano Man, and then at I'm just trying to think. I'm going through my head because I know there was some issues with like some of the lyrics that we had to change because this was a Catholic school. And but then at this was the crowning moment was my graduation. We did a medley of This Is the Time and Souvenir, and which kind of felt like I was Billy, kind of like ending our time there with that, like because he would use Souvenir to end a bunch of his shows, and so it was very poignant. But yeah, that by far was my moment.
I just want to interject on that. I just thought of this. It so happened that Matt's mother worked at my daughter's school at the same time, and going in and out of school, we met her. We met, I met Matt's mom obviously from shows and also from the school, and we knew the guidance counselor and a few other people. And I think the last show we played at Curran's, your mom and like all these people from the school came out. So it was just this.
Oh yeah,
just that funny thing. Speaking of high school, that it was all these. I don't know. I'm sure my daughter would have been embarrassed that all her guidance counselor and the teachers and stuff were there, and then she had to go to school on Monday. So
yeah, for sure. That was a good show. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Billy?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this quick. But back, I guess, in 2009, I had just signed on to Facebook for the first time, and I checked myself into a Billy Joel concert at Citizens Bank Park. And a friend of mine who was managing a restaurant in Center City messaged me and says, and I, believe it or not, I actually lived in the same building as this restaurant. He said to me, Billy Joel may or may not be here for lunch tomorrow, but I would suggest coming in around 12:30 for lunch. There's a great special. Okay, so I go in at 12:30, and there's Billy and Alexa and Max and this whole tour group, you know, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, so I'm sitting there like having a couple drinks at the bar and like, what am I gonna, like, I have to, you know, shake his hand or say something, you know. But I felt bad because he played the night before. He looked awful. He was walking with a cane. I guess this is right before maybe he had hip surgery. And then after reading his book, I realized that it was around this time with all the marriage troubles that he was going through. And he didn't look great. But he had made a comment at the concert where I was sitting at this particular concert, where I went from being in the very front row in 98. I was in the very last row in section 426 at Citizens Bank Park, which is the furthest, cheapest seat you can buy. And Billy actually made a comment during the show. Hey, all you guys up in the Poconos up there, you know, thanks for coming to the show. And being, you know, if you've been to the Poconos or the mountains. But so when Billy was leaving, I got my check real fast and I went outside and I held the door for him as he was coming out. And I said, hey, Billy, great show last night. I was sitting up in the Poconos, but it still sounded great. He goes, oh, you were there? And I said, yeah. And I said, listen, do you mind if I get an autograph? And he goes, I don't have any pens. Well, I came prepared. I had like 12 in my pocket, you know. So he signed this little, which is the back of my restaurant receipt, because that's the only piece of paper that I had.
You got him to pay for you.
Yeah, I wish I could have gotten to pay
the
for
credit
me.
card slip.
But that was honestly, probably the greatest thing, actually meeting Billy. But on top of that, I don't mean to take up too much time, but you know, I think 2012 has been a rough year, obviously, on all of us, or 2012, 2020 has been a rough year with us all. And I think groups like Retold and radio shows like you and Melissa and Teddy do, and Jack, meeting you, you know, during this time, and Michael, I haven't met you, but I've listened to you. I've seen you play with the band, you know, so it's like, you know, it's so cool that this is actually a really great moment, you know, when it comes to being a Billy fan. I think there's a really strong community of us all that are so tied to Billy that even though there isn't live music, there aren't the concerts to go to, but there are these platforms where we can still communicate together with. And I'm new to the whole group, so I'm just really honestly honored to be part of this discussion tonight. And this is actually a highlight of, you know, a Billy experience for me, just being with you guys tonight. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, man, for sure. I'm gonna have to check out your these other shows because I don't think I've heard of them or heard them. So
sure. So anyway, that's all I got.
All right, cool. Well, I think that's an excellent point to wrap things up on. You know, it's nice to think that we're kind of creating a little more of the Billy community lore tonight, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So with that, I want to thank everybody for coming. For jumping on the Zoom, however we want to put this.
This has been a big treat. It goes to show how much Billy's music can connect all of us. And, you know, I know some of you more than others, but I feel like we're all pretty well connected. And it's been such a treat hearing everyone's stories. And we just couldn't think of a better way to wrap up our first official year of doing this podcast. And so we're grateful to have all of you on with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.